What's up, lads? You're with Budget Monk, and welcome to a new video. I wanted to, just like my last video, post a sort of open discussion video, a little bit informative here, just about my take on patch 1.34.4, I think that's the one, in regards to reform progress, and also Crown Land as it pertains to reform progress, giving you the bonus there. So if you're anything like me, it takes you a while. You know, you have some ideas, you see these good reforms, wow, some of them are really great, some CCR admin efficiency, and you have a theory on paper. Well, for me, it takes me about, in my case, this is my third late game campaign, getting to the late game. On my second campaign, I really had a good idea as to how I believe you should be playing the game. It is most efficient. And for the first time, we have put that into practice this game, and it has amazing results. And I highly recommend at least being aware of this when you're making your own decisions. So with that being said, I am somebody who has always advocated for being very minimalistic here in terms of your influence. You can see how lacking of the influence we are, and especially when it comes to the age of absolutism. In order to keep your absolutism up, almost every bonus here costs you absolutism, maximum absolutism. So you want to retract them as you get nearer to the age of absolutism. Now, a lot of people would do the court and country disaster, and I felt like I was one of the first people to really advocate for just ignoring the disaster completely and just retracting your bonuses. I wasn't inspired by anybody else. I kind of came up with that concept myself, and I do it almost every single game, so I don't have to deal with the court and country. It's my preference. Now, with that being said, in the early game, I also like low influence. And the reason why, for people who don't know, your crown land is based off of when you take land, it will adjust. And it will adjust in relation to the actual crown land at the current time versus the influence of your estates. So if you gain, you know, let's say 10% worth of land relative to the size of your country, and you had 0 influence on your estates, you will get directly 10 crown land. Whereas if you had very high influence and they're going to get the vast majority, you would actually lose 10 crown land, assuming you have high crown land. Okay, so there's an equilibrium there of current crown land versus influence of estates that you should be aware of if you're not aware of. I've made videos about it in the past. My preference previously, and still now, is, especially if you're playing an OPM, the larger you are, the less this can be taken advantage of. My preference is to spend all of your crown land so that you're at 0. And therefore, anytime the game adjusts, so you take land, annex a vassal, anything pretty much, anytime you gain land, it will actually grant you crown land because your crown land is so low, the equilibrium will give you crown land. And only does this negative penalty that you have here become an issue once you have more provinces. If you look at the modifier, it doesn't really do anything when you're very, very small. So I like to go from low crown land into transitioning into mid-tier, and at that stage, that's when I would pop monopolies. I'm a big fan of monopolies, not because of any other reason other than they give you loyalty to keep your states happy at the cost of no influence. So this is how I've played. Now, my opinion is that Paradox has been somewhat aware of this playstyle, and they're not the biggest fans of it because they want more engagement. They don't like this kind of janky playstyle, and therefore they buffed Crown Land, giving you an incentive to keep Crown Land up. Well, you can afford to not have very high Crown Land until the mid to late game, in my opinion, which I'm going to elaborate on. And therefore, you always want to manage your autonomy, keep your autonomy low, because that's what gives you reform progress. But I stick to that kind of playstyle. Now, with that being said, when you take your reforms, I had this idea to take ones which reduce the influence of your estates. And this is the first time I've put it into practice. Now, this one, for example, decentralized bureaucracy is so powerful, you need it. Good thing it doesn't increase the influence of your states. So some of them are neutral. This is tax and reduced influence. This is neutral. This is increased influence. Now, keep in mind, that's the same. These are the church, basically, the religious, if I see that correctly. No. This one's military. So we have increased influence here by 10. But this is the really big one right here, is dynastic administration. This is available to all monarchs. Reduced influence of all estates by 10. Very, very, very strong. This gives you +1 admin role to your monarchs, your rulers and heirs. And what more do you need in terms of monarch points? If you're going to conquer the world or something, you need admin. Very powerful. Now, it costs you 0.2 yearly corruption. That is very expensive. I'm not going to lie to you guys. That is actually, you might be appalled at how much that costs you per month based on your income. In my case, I have yearly corruption here, which neutralizes it. There are other nations like Russia who has reduced corruption in their idea trees. So just be aware of it. It is strong, but it's expensive. I don't want to misrepresent anything. -10 to all. In this case, we have neutral, nothing. -10 to burghers. Neutral, nothing. Nothing. And nothing. So overall, we have +10 to one of them, which is minimalized by this. -20 to one of them and -10 to one of them. And I'm talking about the estates. And by playing this way, and retracting my bonuses as we move to the age of absolutism, you can see my crownland is at 100. But not only is it 100, I've never experienced this in my entire history of playing EU4. I would be at 60 or 70 crownland, and I would take land and we would gain crownland. Because the influence, by and large, it doesn't exist. Now remember, developing also gives you crownland. So if we expand, I might lose, let's say, 0.01 or something like that. But I periodically develop building slots with my production. That's what I do. Production is the best, especially in your trading areas. And I basically, you can see here, like I would top that off to give us a new building slot. And just by doing that every now and then, keeps it up. Really nice. So with that being said, try it out. You'll be surprised. It feels really good. What an absolute blessing. Now, finally, because your crownland is so high in the late game, if you stack reduced autonomy, which I highly recommend, it's basically the strongest modifiers, right? So we have access to this, which you might not have, okay, if you're not Asian religion, all right, reduced 10. But what you should have is, if you're a monarchy at least, you should have reduced 10 by the reform bonuses. And then I just made a video about the economic hegemon. You should have that, meaning your maximum autonomy is 60. Okay? 60. Straight up. You have 40% control, 60% autonomy. And that means your average gainage from here is going to be about 0.4. But lo and behold, look at us. In our case, we have meritocracy as well because of our government type. But you gain 100% more from high crownland. And basically all that I'm trying to describe, by the way, you have access to this regardless, is even this bonus here, the whole trade region gets reduced autonomy. Now, you might want to take another one, but I'm just throwing it out there. The point that I'm trying to make is that you never find yourself in the situation that you used to pre-patch, which is you can never pass the reforms. Because if you're getting 100% more of 0.4, you're getting 0.8, which actually isn't that bad. And that's what I wanted to bring to people's attention. If you make it an absolute blessing to keep your crownland up here, you're going to get 100% more. You stack reduce autonomy modifiers. That's what you should be doing if you're going wide anyway. Of course, remember, if it's fitting for you, you can take expansion, and you will never stop getting reform progress. I also uploaded a short where I spoke about how you can change government type at tier 6. Be very aware of that, because that allows you to do a number of things, like, for example, take temporary bonuses, right? You can take something in the meantime, like this guy. We did this, by the way. You can take this guy here for Noble Officer Corps. Very nice. That's professionalism yearly. Gives you a lot more throughout the course of the game. And then as soon as you hit tier 6, you can change your government type to, for example, theocracy, which gives you divine. Now notice you're not becoming a monarchy and then changing to theocracy. No, you're straight up changing to a theocracy, right? So it doesn't cost you an additional 50. Now when you do that, you can re-deliberate your reform progress all the way back down to tier 6 and become a monarchy again after taking divine ideas. And now you can redistribute every single one of your tiers for free. So by doing that, it didn't cost you any additional reform progress, and you can choose for leading into the age of absolutism to reorganize things. So you might take this initially, and then you might decide I want this one, which reduces the influence. And finally, I want to talk about the fact that I have 420 right now, 420 lol, and we gain 1.27 per month. That's a lot, guys. I have the ability, due to being in such good shape, the reforms are all done, we gain a ton. I could, for example, switch this guy over to 15% more manpower, which obviously people like that. Typically that used to be used, but notice it has increased influence by 10%. This has decreased influence, so there's opportunity cost. It's a total of 20 difference. So what I can do is I can switch this for 50, and then I could even go from here to here, reducing leader cost for 50. And then we can switch back, which is 200. But look how much we have and how much we gain. So you have the ability to buff your manpower by 15%, reduce leader cost by 10%, which is 5, bringing this, in my case, down to 30, which means we gain more manpower from slackening. 15% of a large number is big. And then we can buffer the professionalism back up by spamming generals. I'm way ahead of my military points. And then switch back, okay? Because you get way more reform progress now. So that's pretty much it for the video. I wanted to bring that to your guys' attention. You can be very efficient with your monarch points. You can take, reform progress. You can take temporary bonuses. As long as you switch in the mid-game to go very low influence before the Age of Absolutism, and then you start retracting these bonuses, you can get 100 Crown Land very easily. That means you're going to get reform progress way late into the game, and you can do little switcheroo bonuses and so on as much as you like. So that's where my meta is at, is low influence. By the way, with that being said, Celestial Empire is absolutely broken if you read this. I think it's the best government type in the game. I hope that this benefited you. You learned something. Thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see how this goes, we're going to be fighting the Ottomans tomorrow, which is probably today if you're watching this video, because I'll upload it a day later. Then tune into my live stream. I'd like to see you there. And take care, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.